Baker Mayfield, the Browns quarterback, told ESPN that he has requested a trade. They have no intention of moving on from Baker Mayfield.
17-month period. Does that number 66 seem right to you?
You know, that's more of a legal question that I can't really get into details about.
At this point, it seems like a large majority of the content out there is covering Deshaun Watson and the additional legal cases that are coming out against him. And this channel is no exception at all. We've covered Deshaun Watson to a nauseating degree, and we'll even give you a little bit of an update in this video. But it seems like there is finally a light at the end of the tunnel for Baker Mayfield. It seems like there's one team that emerged in the race that is officially showing urgency in order to trade for him. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. We have exclusive documentaries currently on my Patreon, patreon.com/microphone. Great way to support the channel, a little bit extra if you'd like. And now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? We have not talked about Baker Mayfield on this channel for almost a month, it seems, primarily because we have been so consumed with everything going on in the Deshaun Watson case. And that's mainly because that situation is closely tied to Baker Mayfield's situation, in the sense where I suppose the Cleveland Browns originally had this pipe dream of, if Deshaun Watson was not able to play for the first couple of games or first half a season or however long, I thought that was a tweet, or however long he ends up being suspended for, Baker Mayfield will be able to step in, boost his trade value, and do whatever it takes to get the Cleveland Browns in a situation for them to be able to win once Deshaun Watson comes back. Obviously, as time went on, and honestly from the very beginning, we could have and honestly as time went on, and obviously from the very beginning, are you dumb? You're gonna fuck around with me about this. Obviously, as time went on, and to be honest, from the very beginning, anyone could have told you that as soon as the Cleveland Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, the writing was on the wall for Baker Mayfield. This is a man that posted an Instagram farewell the moment he even found out a report that the Browns were interested in Deshaun Watson. So here's the situation that we have been in up until recently to catch you guys up. The very first article that we got is actually coming to us from a few weeks back. That's the fact that as of May 29, 2022, the Seattle Seahawks seem to be interested in Baker Mayfield. Now, it mentions in this article that the Panthers dropped out of discussions during the middle of the NFL draft after asking the Browns to put up between $13 million to $14 million of Mayfield's nearly $19 million guaranteed paycheck next season. And what Carolina was willing to offer Cleveland in exchange for Baker Mayfield was never publicly disclosed, though a mid-round draft pick would have been the most likely return. So we know what ended up happening there. The Carolina Panthers weren't able to acquire Baker Mayfield, so they traded up into the third round and selected quarterback Matt Corral out of Ole Miss University, which we actually have a documentary on coming out really soon, which details all of his off the field stuff and why it's an inspiring story. You guys are gonna love that. So according to a beat writer, Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com, as soon as Sunday, May 29th, the Seahawks were also interested in acquiring Baker Mayfield by another path separate from a trade. So they were hoping that Baker Mayfield would get released, but if we're being honest, that wasn't very likely to happen. I mean, if you have a former #1 overall pick who at the very minimum is an average quarterback at best, why would you release him? You might as well hold on to him in the middle of the season and maybe at least try to trade him before the trade deadline. Intra-season careers are absolutely altered as a result of some of the events that transpire throughout the regular season. Hell, do you think the 2008 New England Patriots were planning on Tom Brady to tear his ACL that season and thrust Matt Castle into the fire like that? So later on, we found out a few days later that, of course, the Browns were unwilling to release Baker Mayfield. Now, the Browns have been unable to find a trade partner for Baker after landing Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans and signing him to a huge contract. I mean, huge. This guy is getting $230 million for 5 years guaranteed, and recently there's been more and more lawsuits filed against him. And yeah, it does tarnish his reputation, and maybe the NFL will feel feel obliged to punish him for a larger period of time, but Deshaun Watson, at least from my understanding, won't receive any jail time for the more recent allegations against him. As a matter of fact, this is what Deshaun Watson had to say in regards to the more recent video we made, where there were at least 66 different massage therapists in a 17-month span.
You know, that's more of a legal question that I can't really get into details about. So you'll probably have to ask my attorneys and things like that to confirm.
Which brings us to where we are currently. Earlier today, we got word that the Carolina Panthers were making a gigantic push for Baker Mayfield. As a matter of fact, there is urgency from the Panthers side to trade for Baker Mayfield soon so he can play in minicamp, per J Jones 9. Mayfield's salary and how much teams will pay remains an issue. I can imagine this being a back and forth between Matt Rule and the general manager of the Carolina Panthers. Matt Rule's probably saying,
"Get me someone that isn't Sam Darnold."
Or maybe he just didn't like what he saw from Matt Corral this early on in voluntary workouts and OTAs. But honestly, I feel like that's a little impulsive to just go in and expect your third-round rookie quarterback to be ready right from the jump to be your next starting quarterback of the future. Look, this might be a little bit of a bold take, or a take that people don't like, but I myself feel as though Matt Rule didn't necessarily get the fairest opportunity to show what he could do with the Carolina Panthers. In year one, he had Teddy Bridgewater and an injured Christian McCaffrey. And in year two, he had Sam Darnold, who actually looked decent when Christian McCaffrey was around, and another injured Christian McCaffrey. At least what I think is going on in Carolina is Matt Rule is game planning around Christian McCaffrey, which is what you should do if you're the Carolina Panthers. But once Christian McCaffrey goes down, he gets absolutely exposed. He isn't able to adjust to the situation at hand. That's at least my very basic theory as to what's going on with the Carolina Panthers. And now Matt Rule is on the hot seat. So he's going into a season where he needs to prove that he's a good head coach with Sam Darnold once again, Matt Corral, maybe they sign Cam Newton again, who says that he didn't necessarily have the greatest preparation to learn the new offenses with the New England Patriots or the Carolina Panthers, which makes a lot of sense. Or they trade for Baker Mayfield. So I want you to know this video was ready like 5 hours ago, but I was waiting because I felt like we were gonna get a Baker Mayfield trade today. And just knowing my luck, the moment I drop this video, we're gonna get the Baker Mayfield trade. So here's what we know so far, at least since the last 4 hours since I originally made this video, and it's coming to us from none other than Josina Anderson.
You know, when you have this sort of situation where a player is in limbo, it would be the general manager's due diligence to stay in contact with teams that general manager has been in contact with more closely, and just obviously keeping the lines of communication. The last I had heard and reported last week was that nothing was imminent. One of the remarks I made in reporting that last week was that obviously that is easier to say when you're in June. Obviously, as you get closer to the advent of training camp and teams have a better opportunity to assess what their personnel looks like or does not look like, and in this case, that would be Matt Corral and Sam Darnold for the Carolina Panthers. You know, perhaps as you get closer to that countdown, it would be easier. But as I stand here right now, nothing is imminent. Matter of fact, I believe I reported last week that the Panthers, from what I could tell, are not pressed or not in any rush. But certainly if you evaluate their quarterback situation, Chris, you and I can have a very good debate about that.
And that's where we stand currently. Now, if you see Baker Mayfield getting traded by this point of the video, drop an L in the comment section for me because I made the wrong call. But I personally think he could get traded at any minute within the next 24 hours. There have been moments where I fumbled this, but at the same time, it's important to note that if he does get traded, the Carolina Panthers face off against the Cleveland Browns on week 1 of this NFL season. So it will make for some very fascinating content exactly 4 months from now if Baker Mayfield does get traded to the Carolina Panthers. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.